Today I'll be painting, of course on silk, this orchid which used to grow on our window. First I just wet with water the highlights, the brightest areas of the orchid. You know, I decided to leave the reference in the frame. Let it be. Although I'm a little embarrassed that you will see how many inaccuracies I make during coloring. But maybe you'll find it more interesting. And after I have outlined the brightest spots, I start very gradually, very carefully to make the shadows. In general, at first glance, my shadows seem invisible, maybe not much different from highlights, but while I paint them, I study the flower, I get used to it, and in spite of the fact that the borders of the light and shadow are still spreading on the silk, I'm not in a hurry to make the shadow dark at once. I'll get there in time. In the meantime, I'm looking at where these borders of light and shadows are, what's going on in the half shadows, in the half tones. And I'm a bore, I'm really interested in it. This whole part of the orchid is in the shade, and basically all of it I'm putting in the shade. I'm just marking it for now. The petals of the orchid have thickness, and I'm showing it. I forgot to say that today I'm coloring with silk and wool dyes, and I will not show the palette today, but I will concentrate on painting only. And on this petal, just under the highlight, there is a pretty dark shadow. I like to paint on dry silk, and my brush is quite dry, so the colors don't spread very quickly. And yes, the brush is a synthetic round brush today. And despite the fact that the reference is quite chromatic, I still try to make the color variety. Somewhere to make the color greener, somewhere a little more yellow, somewhere just gray. And since I paint quite dry, and I always have porous paper next to the palette to dry the brush, sometimes I even have to blur the borders of light and shadow with water. If you build up the shadow slowly and gradually, there is less chance of spoiling something too much, over darkening. So I don't rush. And where I put too dark color, I remove the dye with a paper towel. Probably, if you have already been on my channel, you have noticed that I like to treat silk painting like a real painting. I mean that I like to create volume, play with color, mix paints on the palette, and this technique is somewhat resembling a watercolor technique. Maybe it's a bit difficult, but I have a video on my channel where I showed the simplest ways of painting flowers. I will leave a link in the description under this video. To be honest, sometimes I would like more feedback. Please let me know if you are interested in this type of video where I paint just one flower with or without a background for the duration of the video. I would appreciate it, and thank you in advance. On this petal, the border of light and shadow and the beautiful pinkish reflex are clearly visible. If you are interested in the topic of volume in silk painting, you can learn more about it in this video. Now the reflex seems too active to me, so I hide it a bit. In general, to successfully paint a flower, you should first find the lightest spots, then the darkest, and then very carefully compare everything in the half-tones and half-shadows. And there are areas that I left light in the beginning, then I darken, so that they don't compete with the main highlight. I'm not going to detail these pinkish veins, I'm just going to indicate the presence of pinkish color here. And now the background and the flowers in the background. I'm going to show this part of the video in sped up mode. As you can see, I'm more free with color now. It's always easier with the backgrounds. Less responsibility, and the darkness is more daring, and I take a more frank, more saturated color. To pull the main orchid to the foreground, I make the shadows behind it even darker. Now I'm adding the color of the background to the orchid, so that it doesn't look cut out of this background and organically fit into it. But I don't forget about reflex too, and I changed the brush to a bristle flat one. And now I'd like to draw these flowers in the background even more. And with the semi-dry brush I add more shadows to the main orchid. And I love those split-line strokes on the brush. It's clear that these separate strokes will spread out later, but as long as they hold, they are beautiful.